Europa was not a quiet moon. Beneath its ice-covered surface, the ocean churned in silence, heated by tidal flexing from Jupiter's massive gravitational pull. Fissures groaned, methane pockets burst, but none of it prepared the mining crew of Suniver Station for the message. It started as a vibration. Seismic? Asked Chief Geotech Elena Miran, staring at the red wave forms on her console. She narrowed her eyes. Doesn't match local tectonic models. It's too rhythmic. Across the command deck, her second-in-command, Rajiv Weller, adjusted the filters. I thought maybe a subsurface collapse near shaft 7, but the pulse intervals are steady. See this? He overlaid a harmonic graph. A strange pattern appeared. A ladder of frequencies with exact ratios. Mathematical. Elena muttered. That's not natural. Play it through the audio filter. A moment later, the air filled with a low, haunting hum. It echoed through the deck speakers, a warbling oscillation that sent a chill through the crew. Even the hum of the reactor core seemed to go quiet in response. Jesus, Rajiv whispered. You hear that rise at the end? It's almost like it's asking something. Record and isolate. Elena snapped, regaining her composure. Tag it seismic anomalous. Full data package to Earth Central. Don't send it through the AI filter. Raw files only. Rajiv hesitated. Why not use the AI? It might decode. It might miscode. She cut in sharply. I don't want any AI scrambling the original. Protocol 7. Raw unknown signals must remain unaltered until human oversight confirms the classification. He nodded and got to work. Suniver Station wasn't supposed to be important. It was one of a dozen automated outposts scattered across the Jovian moons, responsible for extracting volatile elements and maintaining deep-sea thermal pumps. Only a skeleton crew remained on board. 5 humans and 40 drones. Most operations were autonomous. But what lay beneath Europa had drawn curiosity since before the first ice-penetrating probes were deployed. A global ocean, potentially twice the volume of all Earth's combined waters, churned in total darkness under miles of ice. And where there was water, there was always the dream of life. Elena had been part of that dream once. As a student at MIT, she'd written her thesis on Europa's subsurface hydrodynamics and posited microbial vents along tectonic ridges. But academic idealism had given way to practicality. Mining paid better. So did data analysis contracts for the United Terran Federation. Still, she had never truly given up hope. And now something beneath the ice had spoken. By the time Earth received the signal, over 30 minutes later via the near-light comm relays, a half-dozen analysts in Geneva were already poring over the data stream. Algorithms cross-referenced known alien languages, looking for structural commonalities. A few flagged minor matches, a repeated spiral structure similar to glyphs found on Tau Ceti 4. But it was the tone, the emotion, and the signal that unnerved them most. Dr. Aisha Kwan saw it at 2:16 Universal Time Coordinated. She was pulled from sleep by a priority alert on her neural HUD, the kind that bypassed standard filters. Bleary-eyed, she reviewed the metadata, then sat bolt upright. Europa. She had expected the usual garbage: mining mishap, supply delay, maybe another union protest about AI oversight. Not this. She called up the waveform and played the audio. Her breath caught. A sudden, irrational fear crept up her spine. She'd heard many strange signals in her time. The click-is communications of the Thalorians, the mathematical chirps from Glee's biosphere orbiters, even the terrifyingly emotionless protocol tones from the Venn Coalition. But this was something else. It felt old, not dead, not inert, but dreaming. And now, waking up, she tapped into the live comms feed from Suniver. What she heard chilled her to the bone. Containment seals holding on Shaft 3. Drone Swarm 5 is offline. Something's disrupting our EM field. We're getting magnetic interference across the board. It was Chief Miran's voice. She sounded calm, but forced. In the background, metal shrieked. Something enormous echoed through the water, like a giant had groaned in its sleep. I'm issuing evacuation orders, Miran said. Request immediate backup from Europa Orbit 1. I don't know what we have, but it's moving, and it's not ours. Then, the signal cut off. Aisha blinked. A communication lockout, but not an explosion. There were no thermal spikes, no radioactive signatures, just silence. Within minutes, the Federation's Joint Space Response Command was called in. By the hour's end, a classified directive was issued. Sundiver Station lost. Cause unknown. Prepare exploratory recovery unit. 2 days later, aboard the UT-FES Jung-hee, a task force of scientists, engineers, and military personnel set course for Europa. Aisha stood at the viewing port of the science bay, watching the stars blur past in a brilliant arc of color. She barely registered the soft hum of the Alcubierre drive or the quiet conversations around her. She was too busy replaying the signal again and again. It wasn't just a message, she was now sure. It was a ping like sonar, but encoded with complex information. Something deep under the ice had stirred, sent out a pulse, and then gone back into silence. Or perhaps it was listening, waiting for a response. And the worst part? The cadence of the signal wasn't alien. Not entirely. Some elements of it resembled early human radio transmissions, layered with digital patterns humanity had long abandoned. Aisha didn't believe in coincidence. Someone or something had been watching us for a long time. Back on Europa, Sundiver Station was now completely dark. Orbital scans revealed that several of the mining shafts had collapsed inward, as if pulled down from below. The heat map showed an anomaly growing beneath the ice, an expanding pocket of energy that registered as far hotter than the rest of the ocean. The site was no longer just a mining rig. It was a door, and something behind that door was awake. The United Terran Federation's command center in Geneva was a hive of controlled chaos. The encrypted data feed from Europa's Sundiver Station was still streaming raw seismic and magnetic field readings, but the station itself was silent, completely offline. No further communications had come through in the critical 36 hours since the initial disturbance. The urgency was palpable. "Bring up the latest intelligence summary," ordered Admiral Peter Groves, standing by a hollow display that showed Europa's icy globe spinning slowly. His voice was calm but steely. "We are dealing with an unknown entity beneath the ice. Whatever triggered the shutdown of Sundiver Station is still active. We cannot wait for further surprises." Dr. Aisha Kwan sat among the briefing staff, a sharp despite the sleepless night. As the Federation's lead xenocryptographer and linguist, her role was clear: decode the signal, understand its nature, and advise the military on the best way to respond. "Admiral," she began, "the signal intercepted isn't just a random emission. It's a form of communication, structured and layered. But it's unlike any known biological or artificial language in the Federation database." Groves nodded. "Can you expand?" Aisha brought up a waveform overlay on the hollow display, showing the repeating pulses and harmonic series. "There's a recursive mathematical structure, similar to fractals, but embedded in it are elements that resemble early human radio broadcasts from the 21st century. Primitive, yet deliberately inserted." "Meaning?" asked General Kim Lee, the Federation's chief military advisor. "Meaning someone or something either has studied us extensively or shares an origin story connected to humanity's past. The use of archaic signals within an alien pattern is unprecedented." "That complicates things," Lee muttered. "It suggests this isn't just a local Europa anomaly. It could be a galaxy-spanning intelligence, a relic of some ancient civilization." Aisha nodded, "which raises the stakes significantly. Whatever lies beneath Europa is awake and aware." The decision was immediate and decisive. The Federation authorized the launch of Expedition Icarus, a multidisciplinary team tasked with investigating the loss of Sundiver Station, re-establishing communications, and, if necessary, neutralizing any threats. The mission profile was a balancing act between exploration and military readiness. Assembling the team. Within 48 hours, the crew was assembled at the Orbital Command Facility above Earth. The Icarus was a sleek, modular ship designed for deep space reconnaissance, capable of rapid response and prolonged deployment. Among the key personnel, Dr. Aisha Kwan, lead linguist and cryptographer, whose familiarity with the Europa signal made her indispensable. Commander Marcus Hale, ex-Special Forces operative and mission commander, responsible for security and tactical decisions. Dr. Lena Alvarez, xenobiologist, specializing in extremophiles and alien ecosystems, tasked with analyzing any biological findings. Dr. Kai Nakamura, engineer and AI specialist, in charge of systems integrity and managing robotic drones. Captain Sophia Redding, pilot and mission logistics officer, renowned for calm under pressure. Aisha met Commander Hale in the briefing room. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, with an expression carved from years of combat experience. Dr. Kwan, he said, shaking her hand, heard a lot about your work. Hope you're ready for this to get ugly. She forced a smile. That's a given. Launch and approach. As Icarus detached from Earth's gravity and sailed toward Jupiter's orbit, the team reviewed the Europa data in detail. The freezing temperatures and crushing pressures beneath the ice sheet made Suniver Station an engineering marvel, but also a vulnerable outpost. The collapse of multiple shafts and the electromagnetic anomalies indicated something beyond simple geological activity. Initial scans suggest the heat anomaly is expanding rapidly, Dr. Alvarez reported. If it's biological, it could be metabolic activity on a massive scale. If mechanical, we might be looking at autonomous systems reactivating. Hale frowned. Or both. A hybrid. The unknown doesn't get easier with distance, arrival, and first descent. When Icarus entered Europa's orbit, the scale of the operation hit everyone. The ice surface stretched out below, a fractured tapestry of white and gray, fractured by linear fissures that glowed faintly with geothermal heat. A thick storm of charged particles buzzed around the poles, painting the sky in auroras visible even from orbit. The crew prepared the submersible drones and pressurized suits for a descent through one of the deep ice shafts near the old Sundiver Station site. Aisha felt a tightening in her chest as she looked down through the viewport. We're stepping into the unknown, she whispered. Under the ice, the descent was tense. The ice wall shimmered with bioluminescent algae, life clinging to Europa's frozen shell. The temperature dropped steadily, but the submersible's heaters kept the hull warm. Hours later, the team arrived at the remains of Sundiver Station. It was a ruin, crushed and twisted as if some giant hand had squeezed it beneath the ocean. No sign of life, no signals. Only the hum of the submersible's sonar bounced back from something massive and still in the distance. Then the first strange readings came through. The temple. Exploration drones sent ahead returned images that stunned the crew. Buried beneath layers of ice and stone was an enormous structure carved from obsidian-like rock that shimmered with an unnatural polish. Its geometric complexity defied explanation, composed of spires, arches, and walls covered with intricate glyphs and carvings that seemed almost to glow in the submersible's lights. It looks sacred, Dr. Alvarez said, but nothing in known alien archaeology matches this style. Aisha studied the glyphs closely. Some resembled fractal patterns from the signal. Others looked like primitive cuneiform or Egyptian hieroglyphs, yet nothing human. It's a language, she said softly, and a very old one. The team moved closer, and a tremor shook the ocean floor. A low rumble echoed through the water, resonating with the temple walls. Something deep beneath the ice was alive. A warning from the past. Back aboard Icarus, the military council debated the next steps. Do we send in a full assault team? Asked General Lee. No, Hale answered firmly. We don't know what we're dealing with. We need to contain it, secure the site, gather intelligence, and prepare for extraction if it goes south. Aisha pushed forward. We need to communicate, she said. The signal was a message, not an attack. Whatever lies beneath Europa is aware and probably curious. We have a chance to learn from it. Maybe even make contact. Lee's gaze was cold. Or make it angry. Protocol 7. The Federation's first contact protocol was strict. Avoid aggressive actions until understanding the entity's intent. In the past, misunderstandings had led to wars that could have been avoided. But here, the stakes felt higher. Aisha volunteered to lead the linguistic interface team, tasked with decoding the glyphs and attempting to establish a two-way communication link. Her team began feeding the patterns into neural translators and fractal decoders. Slowly, fragments of meaning emerged, phrases describing guardians, eternal watchers, and a great war that ended the creators, the stone gods, a new reality. As Icarus prepared for a deeper dive into the temple, Aisha felt the weight of the mission settle over her like the icy depths below. They were not just explorers anymore. They were ambassadors. But to whom? And what did the stone gods want from humanity? Europa's icy ocean held its breath, waiting. The Icarus crew had settled into a tentative rhythm. Days passed in a blur of analysis, equipment checks, and cautious exploration beneath Europa's frozen surface. The closer they got to the mysterious temple, the stronger the strange signals grew, and with them, an unshakable feeling of something ancient stirring. The ice ocean around them was silent except for the soft hum of the submersibles, but deep below, a slumbering power began to stir. The glyphs speak. Aisha Kwan sat in the cramped analysis bay, her neural interface glowing faintly as she worked tirelessly on the temple's glyphs. The language was unlike any human script, a blend of fractal geometry, symbolic patterns, and strange tonal resonances embedded within the stone carvings. It was as if the temple itself was a code, meant to be unlocked by both mind and machine. Hours into the process, the breakthrough came. I've isolated a sequence that translates roughly to Keepers of the Gate, Aisha announced, eyes wide with excitement. They referred to themselves as guardians, custodians of a secret, a threshold between worlds. Commander Marcus Hale looked over her shoulder, skeptical. Threshold between what? Between dimensions, possibly, she replied. Or time. The text mentions a veil that separates realities, and the stone gods are the watchers of that veil. Lena Alvarez, the xenobiologist, was intrigued. If these guardians are biological or biomechanical, maybe they control access to the ocean beneath the ice, or something far larger. Kai Nakamura tapped on his console. Sensors picked up unusual energy patterns near the temple. Low-frequency pulses, almost like a heartbeat, but spread over miles. Could be the keepers themselves, dormant or active. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The ocean trembles. Suddenly, the submersible shook violently. Brace for impact, Captain Sophia Redding shouted, gripping the controls. The tremor wasn't localized. It rippled through the ice and water around them, strong enough to rattle their instruments. Alarms blared across the ship. What the hell was that? Hale barked. Lena scanned the readings. Energy spiked near the temple and a structural shift in the surrounding rock. It's like something moved, something massive. Could the stone gods be waking? Aisha whispered. Or worse, Hale said grimly. Something they're holding back might be waking too. A warning from the past. The translation effort accelerated. The temple's inscriptions began to reveal a dark history. A long-lost war fought eons ago between the stone gods and an enemy known only as the Null. The Null were described as entities that consume stars and realities, erasing existence itself. The stone gods fought to imprison the Null beyond the veil. Aisha read aloud from a projected text. They sacrificed themselves to become eternal sentinels, bound in stone and ice, to prevent the Null's return. But if they were successful, why are they waking now? Hale asked. Because, Aisha said softly, the veil is weakening. The first contact. The tension in the command center was palpable. The Federation had to decide whether to attempt direct communication or prepare for evacuation. Aisha proposed a bold plan. We send a targeted signal back, one based on the original message we received, but encoded with universal mathematical principles. It's a message of peace, curiosity, and willingness to understand. The team worked around the clock, composing the transmission carefully. When the moment came, they broadcast the signal deep into the ocean, aimed directly at the temple. The awakening. For hours, nothing happened. The Icarus crew held their breath. Then, the water around the temple began to glow. At first, it was a faint phosphorescence. Then it spread in waves of shifting colors, blues, greens, and purples, illuminating the ocean depths. The temple's walls vibrated with energy. And then, from the shadows, enormous shapes began to emerge. The stone gods, massive, towering forms surfaced from the abyssal depths, hulking constructs of stone and crystal, covered in ancient glyphs that pulsed with inner light. Their eyes glowed like stars trapped in ice. They moved with slow, deliberate grace, as if roused from an eons-long slumber. Sophia's voice was tense on comms. "They're alive, but not like anything we've ever seen," Lena gasped. "They're biomechanical, part organic, part machine, like ancient guardians." Hale ordered the crew to hold position and initiate passive scanning. The stone gods emitted low-frequency pulses, the same kind as the signal they had first detected. Aisha's neural link picked up fragments of thought patterns, echoes of consciousness, vast, slow, but undeniably sentient. The message. Suddenly, the temple's glyphs flared. A new sequence illuminated the walls, and Aisha felt a wave of comprehension flood her mind. The stone gods were sending a message. It was a warning. "The veil is thinning," the message said. "The null is returning, and the stone gods needed humanity's help." Alliance of species. The implications were staggering. The Federation's xeno-intelligence had never encountered a plea for alliance from such an ancient power. Hale convened a summit. "We can't fight this alone," Aisha said. "They're not gods, but they are powerful relics of a time before our own." Lena nodded. "If the null consumes realities, it threatens all life, human and alien alike." Kai added, "Our technology combined with theirs might be the only way to stop the coming darkness." A new mission. With the stone gods awake and their warning clear, the mission shifted. No longer were they simple explorers or soldiers. They were ambassadors and allies in a cosmic battle for existence itself. As the Icarus prepared to dive deeper into the temple's secrets, Aisha looked out into the vast, glowing ocean. Humanity was no longer alone, and the stones beneath Europa were watching. The uneasy alliance forged beneath Europa's icy crust had fundamentally shifted the mission's purpose. The ancient stone gods, biomechanical sentinels bound in rock and ice, were awake, and their warning of the null's impending return had turned the Icarus crew's focus from exploration to preparation for a cosmic war. But who, or what, were the null, and how close were they to breaking through the veil? The awakening of knowledge. Aisha Kwan sat before the glowing glyphs that adorned the temple walls, her neural interface alive, with data streaming directly into her mind. The stone gods had granted her access, sharing fragments of their memories, history, and purpose in a torrent of images, symbols, and feelings. The memories were haunting. Eons ago, before the birth of the Terran Federation or even Earth itself, the null had appeared. They were not beings in a traditional sense, but rather cosmic entities of destruction, vast, incomprehensible, and ravenous. Their essence was one of erasure, devouring stars, collapsing dimensions, and wiping entire realities from existence. The stone gods had risen as guardians, the last line of defense. The Great War. The stone gods' memories unfolded like an ancient epic. Millennia before humanity's first step on Europa, the null swept across the galaxy, leaving nothing but silence in their wake. Entire civilizations were wiped out. Worlds that had thrived for millions of years were reduced to lifeless husks. The stone gods were forged in desperation, creations of lost civilizations and cosmic architects, blending biology and technology in a desperate attempt to stall the null's advance. These guardians did not merely fight. They imprisoned the null behind a veil, a dimensional barrier that separated realities and prevented the null's spread. But their sacrifice came at a terrible cost. The stone gods bound themselves to the veil, becoming eternal sentinels, frozen in stone and ice, their consciousness fragmented and scattered. The veil weakens. The message was clear. The veil was weakening. The null was stirring again. This revelation sent ripples through the Icarus crew. How does something like that weaken? Commander Marcus Hale asked during a tense briefing. Aisha answered, "It could be natural decay of the dimensional barrier or an external force trying to break it down. The energy signatures we're detecting may be the null probing, testing for weaknesses." Kai Nakamura, monitoring the ship's instruments, added, "We've recorded fluctuations in the local quantum field, irregularities that suggest the veil's fabric is fraying." The threat was no longer theoretical, a glimpse into the void. Using the stone god's knowledge, the Icarus scientists attempted to peer beyond the veil. They deployed specialized probes, equipped with quantum sensors and exotic matter detectors, into the deeper ocean trenches near the temple. What they found was chilling. The probes detected strange distortions, areas where space-time itself seemed to warp and twist, revealing glimpses of a dark, featureless void beyond. Occasionally, faint shapes flickered in that void, indistinct shadows that vanished the moment the probes tried to focus on them. "We're looking into the eye of the storm," Lena Alvarez said grimly. The null's warning. One night, as the Icarus orbited above Europa, a sudden pulse emanated from the temple. It was unlike anything before, sharp, insistent, and terrifyingly familiar. Aisha's neural interface translated the pulse's embedded message, a direct warning from the null itself. It spoke in cold, absolute terms. It is coming. No negotiation. No mercy. Only inevitable destruction. Rising fear. The message unsettled the crew. Commander Hale held an emergency meeting. "We need to prepare for the worst," he said. "If the null returns, it will consume everything in its path. We don't have the firepower to face them alone." Sophia Redding, the ship's pilot, looked determined. "Then we find allies. We reach out beyond the Federation. We bring the galaxy together." But the question loomed. Who else knew about the null? Galactic history. Aisha dived into Federation archives, cross-referencing ancient myths and xenohistories. Fragments from alien civilizations hinted at similar entities, cosmic predators that devoured entire star systems and erased histories. But no one had the stone god's technology or knowledge. If the null returned, it would be an extinction-level event for all sentient life, a plan to fight back. With time running out, the Icarus team proposed a desperate plan. Using the stone god's technology combined with Federation science, they aimed to reinforce the veil. The temple contained dormant devices, massive crystalline cores that could stabilize the dimensional barrier if powered and activated. But to do so, the team would have to venture deeper into the temple and into the ocean trench beyond, into the abyss. The mission was risky. The temple's depths were unexplored and dangerous. The stone god's guardianship extended only so far. Below the temple lay the gateway, an immense crystalline structure shimmering with energy, the heart of the veil. Reaching it meant navigating a labyrinth of underwater caves, massive pressure, and unknown alien mechanisms. Tensions rise. Not all aboard the Icarus trusted the stone gods. Some feared that awakening such power might invite catastrophe. Arguments flared between military pragmatism and scientific curiosity. Commander Hale had to maintain order. "We don't have the luxury of doubt," he reminded his crew. "If the null returns, hesitation will mean death." Preparing the descent. As the crew prepared specialized submersibles to descend to the veil's core, Aisha and her team worked feverishly to decrypt more glyphs and understand the stone god's technology. Their discoveries included strange energy conduits, power nodes, and a network of consciousness, an ancient AI linking the stone gods. The stone gods weren't just guardians. They were a collective mind, an ancient intelligence that humanity was beginning to awaken. A warning echoes. Just before the descent, the temple trembled again. This time, the rumble was accompanied by a voice, a resonant, otherworldly sound that filled the Icarus. It was a final warning from the stone gods. Beyond lies the null's shadow. The veil thins. Courage will be tested. Sacrifice may be required. The mission begins. With heavy hearts but unwavering resolve, the Icarus team boarded the submersibles for the perilous journey into the unknown. Europa's dark ocean awaited. The fate of not just humanity, but all sentient life, hung in the balance. The Icarus crew had made their decision. The warning from the stone gods was too grave to ignore. The veil that separated their reality from the null's consuming darkness was weakening. To reinforce it, they had to dive deeper than any human or machine had dared before. The mission was clear but perilous. Descend into the ocean abyss beneath Europa's ancient temple, reach the crystalline core of the veil, and activate the dormant mechanisms to stabilize the barrier before the null could break through. Preparation and farewells. Inside the Icarus docking bay, the submersibles gleamed under harsh lights, sleek, reinforced vessels designed for extreme pressure and cold, equipped with advanced sensors and weaponry. These craft were humanity's last hope in the frozen depths. Sophia Redding, the ship's pilot, inspected her submersible meticulously. Her usual confident demeanor was tempered by an undercurrent of tension. "You ready, Kai?" she asked Kai Nakamura, the ship's tech specialist, who was double-checking the submersible's quantum sensors. Kai nodded, though his fingers trembled slightly. "As ready as I'll ever be. Once we dive in, it's going to get very dark, very quiet, and very lonely." Commander Marcus Hale gathered the team for final instructions. "We don't know what we'll find down there. The environment, the technology, the stone god's defenses, it's all uncharted. Stay sharp, stay together, and maintain communication." Aisha Kwan and Lena Alvarez exchanged glances. The xenobiologist had been studying the stone god's biology and the temple's ecosystem. Aisha had been translating glyphs and deciphering the stone god's collective consciousness. "This isn't just a dive," Aisha said quietly. "It's a journey into a part of the universe that's older than humanity, older than the stars we know. The veil is more than a barrier. It's a living system, and we have to become part of it." The entry. The submersibles detached from the Icarus and slipped into the icy water. The temperature dropped sharply as they descended through Europa's thick ice crust and into the dark ocean below. The only light was from their own external lamps, cutting through the darkness in narrow cones. The water pressure increased rapidly, the hulls creaking in protest. The crew communicated in hushed tones over the radio, aware that the silence was a fragile shield against the unknown. Into the labyrinth. As they approached the temple, the surroundings grew stranger. Massive crystalline formations rose from the ocean floor, glowing softly with a strange inner light. The water shimmered with particles that refracted their lamps into prismatic colors. The temple walls were covered in intricate glyphs, pulsating faintly as if alive. The submersibles maneuvered carefully through narrow underwater caverns and tunnels, often barely wide enough to pass. Aisha observed the glyphs through the viewport. These symbols aren't just decoration. They're instructions, warnings, even memories encoded into the stone. Suddenly, the submersible's instruments detected energy spikes, waves of unknown origin flowing through the walls. "We're entering the core's outer defenses," Kai said. The Guardians stir. Deep in the abyss, the stone god's presence was palpable. Massive forms of stone and crystal shifted slightly in the shadows, their glowing eyes tracking the explorer's approach. The Guardians' movements were slow but deliberate, as if assessing friend from foe. Sophia maneuvered her submersible cautiously, trying to avoid provoking them. Aisha attempted to communicate using the glyph-based interface they had developed, a sequence of light pulses intended to convey peaceful intentions. The response was unexpected. The Guardians emitted a harmonic resonance, a low, melodic tone that vibrated through the water and their vessels. It was a greeting, a recognition, a fractured mind. Through the neural interface, Aisha accessed the stone god's collective consciousness more deeply. She sensed fragments of memories, emotions, and warnings, but also confusion. The stone gods were ancient and powerful, but their minds were fractured by millennia of isolation and sacrifice. Some parts urged to help humanity, while others remained silent, wary of awakening forces better left asleep. "Even they're struggling," Aisha said quietly. "The burden of eternal vigilance is fracturing their will." The crystalline gateway. After hours of navigation, the crew reached the heart of the temple's underwater complex. Before them rose an immense crystalline structure, glowing with intense, shifting light. It was the core of the veil, a massive dimensional gateway designed to stabilize the barrier between realities. Energy pulsed rhythmically through the core, as if it were a beating heart. The submersibles docked near the structure, and the crew prepared to deploy the activation devices, advanced modules designed to interface with the core and amplify its power. The activation. As Kai and Aisha worked to install the devices, the temple trembled. Energy flared across the crystalline walls, and the veil's destabilization accelerated. Suddenly, the water around the core darkened unnaturally. Shadows twisted and coalesced, forming shapes both horrific and impossible. The null was probing the barrier, testing its strength. First contact. The null's presence was alien and terrifying. It was not just darkness, but an absence of everything light, matter, energy. The shapes flickered between forms, appearing as monstrous voids that absorbed light and seemed to distort reality itself. The submersible's sensors struggled to detect or analyze the phenomenon. Lena whispered, "It's like staring into the end of existence." Sophia's voice was steady but tense. "We need to finish activating the core now. Sacrifice and resolve." Kai looked over at the team. "The energy surges are causing feedback loops in our equipment. If we don't complete the activation quickly, the null might break through." Aisha nodded. "We're the only ones who can do this. The stone gods relied on sacrifice. Now, it's our turn." Commander Hale made a grim decision. If necessary, someone stays behind to maintain the activation sequence while the others return. Sophia volunteered without hesitation. "We need everyone alive. But if this is what it takes," she trailed off. The heartbeat of the veil. As the activation devices synchronized with the core, the temple hummed with rising energy. The veil began to shimmer, waves of light weaving through the fabric of reality. The null's probing shadows recoiled, retreating into the void beyond. The stone gods' presence strengthened, their fractured minds coalescing in hope. Aisha felt a surge of connection with them, a bond forged across millennia and species. Returned to the surface. With the core stabilized, the crew prepared for ascent. Sophia's submersible remained docked at the core, maintaining the activation sequence. The others began the long, slow climb through Europa's ocean. The journey was tense, every moment weighted with the knowledge that the veil's safety was fragile. A new dawn, breaking through the ice crust. The Icarus crew breathed a collective sigh of relief. Though the veil was strengthened for now, the null's threat remained. But humanity had made its stand. They were no longer alone in the universe's dark places. The stone gods had awakened, and with their ancient power and humanity's spirit combined, hope burned brightly against the coming darkness. The surface of Europa was cold and unforgiving, but the true battle lay far deeper, in the realm where light barely dared to penetrate, and where ancient forces were awakening. The Icarus had returned from its harrowing descent with the veil's core stabilized, but the threat of the null had not vanished. Instead, it seemed to be gathering strength beyond the fragile dimensional barrier. The mission's success was a beacon of hope, but it also sent ripples across the galaxy, awakening old fears and darker shadows. Aftermath and recovery. The crew gathered in the Icarus Command Center after their ascent, exhaustion heavy on every face. Sophia Redding had remained behind to maintain the core's activation sequence, her fate uncertain. Commander Marcus Hale stared at the holographic map of the Veil's core, now glowing steadily. "We did it," he said quietly. "The Veil is stronger, but this isn't over. The null is out there, waiting." Aisha Kwan nodded. "The stone god's consciousness is stabilizing too. They are reaching out through the Veil to warn others. We're not the only ones they protected." Kai Nakamura frowned, scrolling through sensor logs. Energy readings show disturbances across multiple systems. Something else is stirring. A message from the void. As the crew pieced together the aftermath, a sudden, unexpected transmission cut through their comm channels. It was faint and cryptic, layered beneath static, an alien signal from deep space, encoded in patterns reminiscent of the stone god's glyphs. Lena Alvarez was the first to recognize it. "It's a message from beyond the veil," she said, her voice trembling with awe. The message was fragmented, but the gist was clear, a warning. Something ancient and malevolent was moving toward the outer edges of known space. The null was not alone. The galactic web. The Icarus scientists reached out to the Terran Federation's networks, seeking allies and intelligence. What they uncovered was alarming. Across star systems, once dormant anomalies were flaring to life. Ancient defense systems, remnants of civilizations long extinct, were activating. Reports of strange phenomena, vanishing planets, collapsing stars, and unexplained power surges began flooding in. The galaxy was awakening to a threat it had hoped was myth. The Council's dilemma. The Federation's Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The Icarus crew presented their findings, urging unity against the null. But the Council was fractured. Many dismissed the threat as legend or feared the political upheaval that preparing for an existential war would cause. Some argued that focusing on the null distracted from immediate crises, resource wars, territorial disputes, and growing unrest among member worlds. Commander Hale's voice cut through the debate. If the null arrives, none of those crises will matter. We need to prepare now, or everything we know will be destroyed. Uneasy alliances. With limited support from the Council, the Icarus crew took matters into their own hands. They reached out to other civilizations, some old allies, some mysterious and wary. Among these were the Kalerans, an ancient race known for their mastery of biotechnology and stealth. The Kalerans had legends of the Null too, calling them the Void Reapers, and possessed technology that could cloak entire fleets. But trust was fragile. Negotiations were tense, with old grudges and cultural differences threatening to unravel the fragile alliance. The Null's advance. Meanwhile, the Null was not idle. Through the veil, its tendrils probed deeper, seeking cracks and weaknesses. Sensors aboard the Icarus detected rising quantum distortions, ripples of erasure that threatened to unravel matter itself. Sophia reported unusual gravitational anomalies near the outer rim of the Federation. It's like space itself is being pulled apart, she said grimly. The Stone God's sacrifice. Aisha delved deeper into the Stone God's consciousness, seeking guidance. What she found was both inspiring and terrifying. The Stone Gods had once faced the Null's return in an ancient war, a battle that had cost them their physical forms, binding them forever to the veil. They revealed a potential weapon, hidden within the temple's depths, a power capable of not only strengthening the veil, but striking at the Null directly. But accessing it required a sacrifice. A member of the Icarus team would have to merge with the Stone God's consciousness, becoming a living conduit for their power. The burden of choice. The revelation sparked fierce debate among the crew. Volunteering meant giving up one's humanity, becoming part machine, part consciousness, bound to the veil for eternity. Sophia was the first to step forward. "This is our chance to fight back," she said. "I'm ready to carry that burden." Commander Hale resisted at first, unwilling to lose one of his best. But Sophia was resolute. "We can't win by hiding. We have to face the darkness head-on." Preparing the ritual. As Sophia underwent the complex neural and biomechanical augmentation required, the Icarus prepared for the coming storm. The crew trained tirelessly, upgraded their weapons, and coordinated with allies across the galaxy. The Icarus itself was retrofitted with advanced shields and dimensional stabilizers, technology reverse-engineered from the Stone God's temple. Aisha continued to communicate with the Stone God's collective mind, learning from their wisdom and history. The calm before the storm. Despite preparations, tension mounted. The crew shared quiet moments of reflection, knowing the battle ahead could cost them everything. Kai sat alone, staring at the stars through the Icarus observation deck. "The Null is coming," he murmured to himself. "But maybe, just maybe, we can stop it." A new resolve. As Sophia emerged from the augmentation chamber, her eyes glowing faintly with new light, the crew felt a renewed sense of hope. She was no longer just a pilot. She was a beacon, a living bridge between humanity and the ancient guardians. Commander Hale clapped her shoulder. "We stand together," he said. "For humanity, for the Stone Gods, for the galaxy." And as the Icarus set course toward the outer rim, toward the gathering darkness, one truth was clear. The shadows were stirring, and the fight for all existence was about to begin. The Icarus cruised silently through the star-studded void, its sleek frame cutting through the vacuum as if slicing through the very fabric of reality. Within its hull, tension coiled tightly, a living pulse of anticipation and dread. The crew knew the calm before a storm was often the most dangerous moment of all. With the veil stabilized and Sophia's transformation complete, the mission now shifted from defense to preparation for an inevitable confrontation. The Null, that creeping void of erasure and silence, was gathering forces, and so too must humanity and its allies. Allies in the void. Diplomatic channels buzzed with activity. The tentative alliance formed with the Kalerans was just the beginning. Messages had been sent to distant systems, some hostile, some indifferent, many unknown, imploring for aid or at least understanding. The Icarus became a mobile embassy of sorts, a symbol of unity in the face of the encroaching darkness. Kai Nakamura worked around the clock, decrypting responses and coordinating fleet movements. Reports streamed in from border systems about strange encounters, ships vanishing without trace, unexplained energy spikes, and cryptic warnings in dead languages. "We're seeing patterns," Kai said, pointing to holographic star maps covered with overlaying graphs and symbols. "The null's tendrils aren't random. They're strategic, probing, weakening, softening targets before moving in." Commander Marcus Hale leaned over the display, the weight of command settling on his shoulders. "So they're preparing for a full invasion." "Exactly," Kai replied grimly. "And it won't be long." Sophia's new reality. Sophia, now augmented with stone god technology, was a living conduit between humanity and the ancient collective consciousness. Her eyes, glowing faintly with an iridescent hue, reflected more than just physical light. They held the knowledge and power of millennia. But with that power came isolation. She could feel the whispers of the stone gods in her mind, echoes of their long sacrifice and eternal vigilance. Sometimes, their voices were a comfort, guiding her through complex calculations or warning of unseen dangers. Other times, they were a relentless storm, fracturing her thoughts and threatening her sense of self. "I'm still me," she assured Lena Alvarez one evening, during a rare moment of calm in the observation lounge. Lena studied her carefully. "You're more than you were before, but you're not alone. We're with you." Training the fleet. The Icarus crew spent long hours preparing the fleet for what lay ahead. Tactical drills, weapons testing, and simulations became daily rituals. The Kalaran cloaking tech was integrated into the command ships, allowing fleets to maneuver unseen through hostile space. Lena led teams training with the latest bioweapons, derived partially from stone god biotechnology, designed to disrupt the null's quantum structure. Aisha Kwan, meanwhile, worked on deepening the connection between Sophia and the stone gods, hoping to unlock new defensive capabilities. The null's shadow. As preparations advanced, the null's presence grew more ominous. Scouts returning from the edges of the galaxy brought back terrifying reports. Whole star systems were disappearing, erased without warning or residue. The null did not simply destroy. It obliterated existence itself, unmaking matter, energy, even the threads of time. Sophia sometimes felt its presence in her augmented mind, a cold emptiness trying to seep in, a darkness that wanted to consume her from within. "Stay strong," Marcus urged. "You're the shield between us and the abyss." Whispers of rebellion. Not all were willing to stand united. Across the Federation, factions resisted the call to arms. Some saw the null as a natural force, a cosmic reset beyond human control or influence. Others feared that the growing power of the stone gods and their human conduit threatened free will. Riots and sabotage began to flare, fueled by misinformation and desperation. Kai discovered encrypted messages from unknown sources encouraging rebellion, sowing discord at critical moments. Marcus faced a new challenge: to lead not only against an alien void but against his own people's fears and divisions. The Lost Fleet. Amid the growing tension, the Icarus received a distress beacon from the Helios Vanguard, a fleet lost near the Perseus Rift, a region known for its unstable spatial anomalies. The Helios Vanguard had been investigating null activity and had gone silent for weeks. Rescue teams launched immediately, with Sophia piloting a stealth submersible through the hazardous rift. Inside the dark, twisted folds of warped space, they found the remnants of the fleet, caught in a dimensional trap. Ships were shattered, crew missing or gone mad. But among the wreckage, Sophia detected a faint signal, a hidden message from the Vanguard's captain. It spoke of a mysterious artifact, one the null feared, buried in the heart of the rift. The artifact's promise. Back aboard the Icarus, the crew studied the artifact's description. It was said to be a relic from an ancient race predating even the stone gods, capable of bending reality itself. If real, it might be the key to turning the tide. But reaching it meant venturing into the heart of the null's domain, a perilous journey through realms where time and space fractured. Sophia's connection to the stone gods gave her a unique advantage. She could sense faint traces of the artifact's energy, but the closer she got, the stronger the null's influence became. A difficult decision. Commander Hale convened a council with his senior officers. This mission is high risk, he said. But if the artifact exists, it could save us all. Aisha voiced the doubts. We don't fully understand the artifact's power. It could be as dangerous as the null. Kai added, we have limited resources. Do we risk losing more lives chasing a legend? Sophia, her glowing eyes steady, said, it's a risk we have to take. I'll lead the mission. The crew respected her bravery but worried for her safety. The calm before the storm. As the Icarus set course for the Perseus Rift, the crew prepared for a mission that could alter the fate of the galaxy. Tensions ran high, and every member knew the coming battle might be their last. Marcus stared out at the swirling stars, feeling the weight of command heavier than ever. We stand on the edge of oblivion, he said softly, but we also stand together. The storm approaches. Far beyond the shimmering veil, the null shadows gather like a storm on the horizon, patient, relentless, unstoppable. But humanity had a new weapon. Hope. A hope forged in ancient stone, human courage, and the unyielding will to survive. As the Icarus plunged toward the unknown, the gathering storm was no longer just a threat. It was a call to arms. And the fight for all existence was about to begin. The Perseus Rift loomed before the Icarus like a gash in the fabric of space, a chaotic storm of shimmering light and dark shadows twisting together in violent eddies. It was a place where reality itself seemed to bend, where time warped and space folded in impossible ways. Few dared to venture here, and fewer still returned. But this was their only lead. Sophia Redding stood on the bridge, her augmented senses reaching out beyond normal human limits, feeling the subtle shifts and the dimensional energies that pulsed from the rift's core. The stone god's whispers echoed faintly in her mind, warning and guiding. This is it, she said quietly to Marcus Hale. The artifact's energy signature is strongest here, but so is the null's presence. Entering the maelstrom, the Icarus began its descent into the rift, its shields pulsing to counteract the spatial distortions that threatened to tear the ship apart. Sensors flickered erratically, readings shifting between incomprehensible spikes and total blackouts. Kai Nakamura, seated at the navigation console, fought to maintain a stable course through the swirling chaos. This place, it's like flying through a nightmare, he muttered, sweat beading on his brow. Every moment we get closer, the null's interference grows. The crew braced themselves as the ship lurched violently, tossed by unseen forces as they plunged deeper into the unstable zone. Lost time. Time became an elusive concept within the rift. Moments stretched and compressed unpredictably. Sophia noticed her augmented senses starting to fracture, the stone god's collective consciousness flickering like a failing signal. She focused inward, using meditation techniques she had learned from the stone god's history to stabilize her mind. Around her, the crew experienced strange phenomena, visions of alternate realities, echoes of lost lives, flashes of futures that might never be. Lena Alvarez described it as walking through a dreamscape where reality dissolves. Ghosts of the past. As they ventured further, the Icarus detected remnants of the lost Helios Vanguard fleet scattered across the rift like cosmic wreckage. Aisha Kwan's eyes widened as she studied the debris. These ships were attacked by something that tears apart not just matter, but time and memory. The crew's communications began picking up faint transmissions, distorted messages from the Vanguard's last moments. Sophia decoded a haunting voice, Captain Marin Ellis, begging for help, warning of the null's advance. We're losing everything. The message crackled. The artifact must be found. It's the only hope. The heart of the rift. Guided by the artifact's energy signature, the Icarus finally approached the rift's core, a swirling vortex of impossible colors and shapes, radiating power that seemed both ancient and alive. The ship's shield strained against the intense energy, while the null's influence pressed in like a suffocating darkness. Marcus gave the order. Prepare the extraction team. Sophia, you're going in. Sophia nodded, her augmented form ready. She boarded the specially designed scout craft, a small, agile vessel capable of navigating the rift's most dangerous regions. A descent into madness. Inside the scout craft, Sophia felt the null's presence grow stronger, pressing against her mind like a black tide. Her connection to the stone gods flared, offering protection but also revealing terrifying glimpses of the Null's true nature, a sentient force born from the death of entire universes, seeking to consume all creation. She fought to keep her own consciousness intact, relying on training, willpower, and the voices of the stone gods echoing in her mind. The artifact revealed. At the vortex's center, Sophia found the artifact, a crystalline structure floating in a field of distorted space-time, humming with raw, primal energy. It pulsed with life, as if aware of her presence. Reaching out, she felt the artifact's power surge through her, filling her with visions of the ancient race that created it. They had forged it as a weapon and a shield, a means to rewrite reality itself, to protect existence from annihilation. But the artifact was incomplete. Pieces had been lost or hidden across the galaxy, scattered after a cataclysmic war with the Null's ancestors. The Null strikes. Suddenly, the Null unleashed a wave of destructive energy. The rift convulsed violently as tendrils of darkness lunged toward the scout craft, attempting to sever Sophia's connection and erase the artifact. The ship shook, systems failing one by one. Sophia's augmented reflexes kept her steady, weaving through the chaos as she clutched the artifact. Her mind screamed, battling the Null's corrosive influence. Sacrifice and escape. Realizing the scout craft couldn't withstand another strike, Sophia initiated the extraction sequence, transferring the artifact's energy signature back to the Icarus. But the Null was relentless. With a final surge, it crushed the scout craft's hull. Sophia barely ejected, her augmented body screaming through the void. She was pulled into the Icarus docking bay by emergency tractor beams, her body battered but her spirit unbroken. A new hope. Back on the Icarus, the artifact's energy spread through the ship's systems, interfacing with the stone god technology. Aisha and Lena worked feverishly to unlock its secrets. Slowly, a new shield matrix began to form, a living barrier that pulsed with the artifact's power, promising protection against the Null's erasure. Sophia's sacrifice had not been in vain. The calm before the war. As the Icarus prepared to exit the Perseus Rift, the crew gathered, knowing the real battle was just beginning. Marcus addressed them, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of what was to come. We've taken the first step into the darkness. We have a weapon, but we need unity, courage, and everything we have to face what's coming. Sophia, still recovering, stood beside him. We carry the hopes of all who live in this galaxy, she said softly. We will not let the Null consume us. The gathering storm gathers. Beyond the stars, the Null's shadow deepened. The final confrontation loomed, a war that would decide the fate of all existence. But humanity was no longer alone. With ancient wisdom, alien allies, and newfound power, they were ready to fight. The storm was here, and they would stand. The void outside the Icarus pulsed with an unnatural stillness, as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. For weeks, the ship had skirted the edges of Null-controlled space, rallying allies and preparing for the battle that would decide the fate of existence. Now, it was time. The gathering fleets. The Icarus became the flagship of a coalition unlike any other. Starships from human colonies, Kalaran war vessels, and even smaller factions that had once been at odds now sailed under one banner. Marcus Hale stood on the bridge, eyes scanning the massive holographic display that hovered before him. The fleets formed a crescent around the Null Rift, the epicenter of the enemy's power. Kai Nakamura, his fingers flying over the tactical consoles, detailed the battle plan. Our objective is clear. We hit the Rift's outer defenses and create a breach for Sophia's team to deploy the artifact's power. Aisha Kwan chimed in. The artifact's shield matrix will need to be activated at the exact moment the Null's energy is weakest, during the transition phase of their quantum flux cycle. Sophia, standing quietly to the side, focused inward, sensing the delicate balance of cosmic forces at play. Tensions among allies. Despite the fragile unity, tensions simmered below the surface. Cultural differences and long-standing grudges threatened to undermine the coalition. During a brief briefing, Marcus addressed the assembled commanders from various factions. We cannot afford to fracture now. The Null does not discriminate, and neither can we. Our survival depends on trust and cooperation. One Kalaran commander, stoic and proud, nodded grimly. We fight for survival, not for old grievances. Still, whispered arguments and covert disagreements spread through the ranks. Marcus knew that the real battle was not just against the Null, but also the fear and doubt within their own ranks. The final preparations. As the fleets moved into position, the Icarus became a hive of activity. Engineers optimized the artifact's integration with the ship's systems, while medics prepared for inevitable casualties. Sophia underwent further mental conditioning, deepening her connection with the stone gods to withstand the Null's psychic onslaught. Lena Alvarez and Aisha Kwan worked together to devise bioweapon countermeasures, incorporating alien technology with human ingenuity. Kai and the tactical officers ran simulation after simulation, refining their attack strategy. Into the maelstrom, the order came. The fleet surged forward, engines blazing against the darkness. The Null Rift erupted in violent energy as defensive tendrils lashed out, tearing through the void. The battle was a tempest of light and shadow. Energy blasts illuminated the swirling darkness. Starships danced through lethal currents of quantum disruption. Marcus commanded from the bridge, issuing orders with calm precision despite the chaos. Focus fire on the rift generators. Keep the shield matrix ready for Sophia's deployment team. Sophia's Crucible. Sophia led the strike team aboard specialized assault vessels, navigating the rift's deadly distortions to reach the artifact's activation point. The Null's forces attacked relentlessly, tendrils of dark energy trying to sever her link to the artifact. Her mind, fortified by the stone gods, resisted the Null's invasive assault, but the strain was immense. Each step closer to the heart of the rift was a battle within itself, a fight against madness and oblivion. The turning point. As the Icarus fleet began to falter under the Null's counterattacks, Sophia reached the core chamber. She raised the artifact high, unleashing its ancient power in a burst of brilliant light that cut through the darkness. The Null's tendrils recoiled, momentarily stunned. Aisha's shield matrix activated, forming a protective barrier that rippled outward, stabilizing the surrounding space-time. The tide of battle shifted, sacrifice and triumph, but victory came at a cost. The Null, desperate and enraged, launched a catastrophic strike at the Icarus. The ship shook violently as hull breaches exploded throughout the decks. Marcus coordinated damage control, ordering evacuation protocols while maintaining command. Sophia, pushing beyond her limits, maintained the artifact's power, channeling every ounce of strength to keep the shield stable. Her body and mind screamed in pain, but she refused to yield. Unity forged in fire. Across the battlefield, the Allied fleets rallied, inspired by the Icarus' resilience and Sophia's sacrifice. Old rivalries melted away as commanders ordered coordinated strikes, exploiting the Null's momentary weakness. Kai orchestrated fleet maneuvers with unmatched precision, while Lena led boarding parties to cripple Null warships. Together, the coalition forged a path toward victory. The Null's collapse. The artifact's power reached its zenith, unraveling the Null's quantum structure. The dark tendrils writhed and shattered, their destructive force neutralized. The rift began to close, the chaotic energy dissipating like mist. Sophia collapsed, drained but alive, her link with the stone gods dimmed but intact. Marcus rushed to her side. "We did it," he said, voice choked with relief. Sophia smiled faintly. "We saved more than just ourselves. We saved existence." Aftermath. The war was over, but the cost was heavy. The galaxy mourned lost heroes and shattered worlds. But from the ashes, a new hope emerged. The coalition vowed to stand vigilant against future threats, united in a fragile peace forged in the crucible of war. Marcus addressed the survivors in a somber ceremony. "We fought because we must. We endured because we could. And we will rebuild because we are human, resilient, relentless, and unyielding." A new dawn. As the Icarus limped away from the remnants of the rift, the stars seemed brighter. Sophia looked out at the endless cosmos, a quiet resolve settling within her. The battle was won, But the journey was far from over. The universe was vast, filled with mysteries and dangers. But humanity had proven one thing beyond doubt. No darkness, no void, no alien force could extinguish the fire of human will. They were the guardians of existence, and their story was only just beginning. The battle was over. The Null Rift had collapsed, its malevolent energy dissipated by the ancient artifact and the unity of the allied fleets. But as the last echoes of war faded, the Icarus and its crew faced a new reality, one filled with hope, uncertainty, and the promise of discovery. After the storm, the Icarus floated gently in the void, surrounded by the remnants of the shattered rift and the silent hulks of Null warships. Inside the ship, a calm had settled over the crew, but beneath it lingered the weight of loss and the burden of what had been endured. Marcus Hale moved through the corridors, visiting every department, thanking the crew and commending their bravery. Every face told a story of sacrifice, survival, and an unyielding spirit. Sophia Redding rested in the medical bay, her body battered and healing, her mind still intertwined with the stone god's ancient wisdom. Despite the physical toll, her eyes burned with determination. They had won the battle, but the universe still held many secrets. A universe changed. With the null threat neutralized, the galaxy's factions began the slow process of rebuilding. Old boundaries faded as new alliances formed, and humanity's role as a unifying force grew stronger. The artifact, now fully integrated with the Icarus, had opened pathways not just to defense, but to exploration and knowledge. Aisha Kwan and Lena Alvarez worked together to decode the artifact's deeper functions, uncovering data about ancient civilizations and technologies lost to time. The artifact is more than a weapon, Lena explained one evening in the research bay. It's a key to understanding the universe, to unlocking new possibilities, new horizons. Marcus convened a council of leaders from the coalition's diverse factions. The conversation shifted from war strategy to the future of exploration. We cannot simply return to the old ways, Marcus declared. We have a responsibility to protect, yes, but also to seek out what lies beyond our reach. Kai Nakamura, ever the pragmatist, added, the universe is vast. There are worlds untouched, civilizations waiting to be discovered. We have the tools now, the artifact, the alliances, the technology. Sophia, joining the council despite her recovery, spoke with quiet authority. We are at a crossroads. The choices we make now will shape not just our survival, but the future of all life. The legacy of the stone gods. The stone gods, those mysterious ancient entities who had guided Sophia and lent their power to the artifact, became a subject of fascination and reverence. Through meditation and technological interface, Sophia deepened her connection to them. She learned of their origins, beings who transcended physical form, protectors of cosmic balance who had fought the Null's ancestors eons ago. Their warnings echoed still. The Null might be defeated, but their dark influence could ripple through the fabric of reality for millennia. The stone gods teach us vigilance, Sophia shared during a broadcast to the Coalition's fleets. We must not grow complacent. Rebuilding and remembrance. The scars of war ran deep. Communities across the galaxy worked tirelessly to heal, both physically and emotionally. Memorials rose to honor those who had fallen, their sacrifices etched into the stars themselves. Marcus visited one such monument, a simple obelisk surrounded by the names of the lost, glowing softly in the dark. He reflected on the cost of survival, but also on the strength humanity had shown. We are more than just survivors, he thought. We are the architects of a new destiny, uncharted frontiers. With the artifact's power, the Icarus prepared for a new mission, one of exploration and discovery. A new crew assembled, blending veterans of the war with scientists, diplomats, and explorers eager to chart the unknown. Sophia was appointed as the lead ambassador to alien civilizations, her knowledge of the stone gods and experience with the Null making her uniquely qualified. Kai Nakamura took command of the Icarus navigation and tactical systems, eager to push the ship to its limits in the name of discovery. A new mission. The Icarus set a course for the newly discovered Eridani expanse, a sector rich with potential but shrouded in mystery. As the ship accelerated to faster-than-light speeds, the crew gathered on the bridge to witness the stars blur and stretch into lines of light. Marcus addressed them, his voice filled with hope. "We are no longer just fighting to survive. We are here to thrive, to learn, and to connect." Sophia added, "The universe is vast and full of wonders. Together, we will uncover them." Whispers on the wind. Despite the victory and optimism, subtle warnings surfaced. Sensors aboard the Icarus detected faint energy signatures, echoes of the null's dark influence still lingering in pockets of space. Aisha's voice was cautious during a security briefing. "We may have won the war, but the threat isn't completely gone. The null's essence can't be destroyed, only contained." Sophia nodded in agreement. "Our vigilance must continue. We must prepare for whatever comes next." Humanity's place. As the Icarus journeyed into uncharted regions, the crew contemplated humanity's place in the cosmos. They were no longer isolated. They had allies among the stars, knowledge beyond imagination, and a resolve forged in the darkest of battles. Marcus mused privately, "We are the spark in the void, the light that refuses to be extinguished." Sophia, gazing out at the endless expanse, felt the weight and wonder of their mission. "The stars call to us," she whispered, "and we will answer." A new beginning. The chapter closed on a scene of quiet promise. The Icarus sailed onward, cutting through the darkness toward new worlds and new challenges. The artifact pulsed softly, a beacon of hope and power. The stone gods watched silently through Sophia's mind, guardians still, and humanity stood ready, not just to survive, but to shape the future beyond the stars.